now is 6:30. I'm Chairman Mike Curry, and I'd like to call this Board of Selectmen workshop to order on the 6th day of May 2020. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and
to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God,
indivisible,
with indivisible, with liberty and justice
for
all.
Great, thank you. Just as a quick roll call, this evening we have the following board members. We have Terry Griffiths, and we have Diane Haley, and we have myself, so that gives us a quorum for this evening. Before I begin, I'd like to state for the record that not only are we being live streamed on YouTube web platform, but the entire proceeding this evening, except for any executive sessions, are being recorded for both TCTV Cable Station 8 and later viewing on the TCTV YouTube channel. At this time, I'd like to ask if there is anyone from the press present. Hearing nothing, thank you. As always, our agenda for this evening has been set no later than 48 hours out by law. It is publicly available at the official source for town information, templetonma.gov. I would also remind citizens of our 4 villages to sign up or register for emergency updates using the Code Red system. It's on the left-hand or middle part of the screen near the bottom. And you may also text from your smartphone the keyword Templeton MA to 99411. Although this discretion is chairperson to add and remove from the agenda, it has been set to allow for time, people, and public awareness. This evening, we actually may move items around based on our guests. We are still refining our enhanced communications abilities. Public comment is still possible via the chat section of the live stream on YouTube. I and TCTV are monitoring the chat section and will address comments and questions as they appear, or very much when they may be appropriate. Remember, this chat area is part of the permanent record, so please state your name and optionally your street as you would in a town meeting. That's if you wish to participate, as most YouTube names are informal or avatars. This is a right afforded to residents of this community. Non-residents may watch, but must submit any questions in writing through the town's website process. Okay, this evening we've got our emergency management director with us. Unless there was a request from evening, Jeff, how are you? Oh, I don't want to make him just go off mute, sorry. We have Rich Curtis. I know it's second on the agenda, but if no one has any objections, if Rich could go first for to give his third quarter report. All right, hearing no objections. Good evening, Rich. How are you?
Doing good.
Excellent. Rich, we have your report from the last meeting. If you'd like to just run through the report. We know it's a workshop, but a lot of the selectmen really just wanted to hear from you, whether they had questions or not, but they sorely missed your presence, and we're really glad that you were able to join with us tonight. So thank you.
Okay, so you're all set?
No, could you review your the third quarter report?
Yes. Okay. All right. During this quarter, we assisted with Lori with her Region 2 emergency preparedness drill at the middle school. We supplied her with 2 certs to help her along, because certs would be a part of her necessities there for those types of drills. So, and for real events. So she manages to make sure that they're there every time, which is good. I turned in the emergency management's annual report. I had applied for and was awarded the fiscal year 2019 EMPG grant, was for $2,900. The spending on that grant is not going to begin until July 1st of this year. So it'll be spent in the next fiscal year for us. I had applied, I participated in a Board of Health emergency dispensing drill. I believe a lot of people did, where participants had to log into the WebEOC to participate. And that went well. And in the beginning of March, the COVID-19 began to really escalate. It was the beginning of many, many hours of webinars and conference calls and whatnot. And we went into a state of emergency on the 16th. And the ICS structure was put in place. Daily conference calls were required just to keep everybody informed. And I was assigned to the logistics chief position so that we could take care of any needs that we need, like fire department needed for their PPEs and stuff. I left Florida to return to Templeton on the 20th, got here on the 22nd. And the EOC has been open Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily ever since. The fire department had a need for PPE supplies, as I mentioned. These were items that they could not get through their normal ordering procedures. We couldn't even pay for them, so went through MEMA, and which is a good thing in a way because we don't have to pay for them. We had some issues with some of the stuff that they had sent us, but it all worked out, and we've been keeping up with it for the most part. We can't stock items with them. So basically when the chief tells me he needs something and he has to let me know when he's running out, how much he uses per day, and when we're going to absolutely need them. They determine through that information whether or not we are going to get the materials we requested. But so far we've gotten things like masks, gloves, hand sanitizer, their gowns that they need, and the Tyvek suits. So that hasn't been too bad. MEMA requested the reporting of all first responder staffing in each community so they could have an idea of the workforce for every community. And we do that through WebEOC as well. It's updated when either one of the chiefs call me and say that they've got a change in their status, whether it's less or more. Right now we're down one, I believe, at the fire department, and that's it. I called MEMA concerning reimbursements for the last 3 grants that we did during this fiscal year. And because we have not seen any reimbursements hit the town account yet. I was still waiting to hear on that when this report was written, but just so you know, I complained to the regional manager that these should be in before the end of the fiscal year, and they pulled the MEMA staff that had been reassigned elsewhere to handle it. So I guess it's being done as we speak. So we'll see what happens. They've got basically 2 months to get it into us, or better of 2 months. And the CERT activities have been kind of slow because of the time of year. But there was 3 certs that worked pretty much all through the winter on the EOC, organizational stuff and cleaning. The place looks really good and it's well organized. So they did a fantastic job for us. And that's basically my 3rd quarter report.
Thank you, Rich. Does anyone on the board have any questions for Rich? Well, I can say that being a part of the ICS structure, we have logistics, finance, operations, and I fulfill the intelligence, and I fulfill the public information. I can say that working with the team, I'm very proud of the team that the town has. Some we see all the time, some we don't get to see that much. But when Rich talks about the CERT team members and their engagement with the seniors in the community, just doing well-being checks, that's a lot of volunteering time, and I'm just very proud of the people that we employ during emergency operations. So, Rich, thanks for coming on this evening to give us your 3rd quarter report. Terry, you have a question?
No, I just wanted to say thank you for mentioning that, because I just finished a book on Palaces for the People, and they said that the communities that thrive, it was a study on, emergency situations, um, like why CERT was established in 2001, I believe. And they said that the communities with a strong social infrastructure do the best in emergencies, and things like the CERT team checking in on the elderly was high. One of the things that they said was, not exactly like that, but that's what makes a strong community, when people in your neighborhood watch out for each other, or people, where people can feel safe and help each other, basically. So that, the senior center, it just ticked all the right boxes with me about our community and how strong we are, because we have a lot of social groups in place.
I agree, Terry, and a lot went into that process. The senior center, community services, the CERT team, Rich's direction, and giving them a lot of motivation and what's the word I'm looking for? Momentum to get that. That's a capability that we did not have before, and that's one of the things that we're doing, is that we're learning at the same time. We've never had. He said we went into emergency operation March 16th. That's going to be coming up on another 10 days, and that's 2 weeks of emergency operations in this community. We have not had that before. So to develop capabilities like that is intensely important, because we're writing the book on how we will deal with things in the future.
And
so I certainly, I appreciate a lot of the leadership that we're seeing within our community.
COVID-19 has made dramatic hits to social infrastructure, with rec department not being able to run their programs, the schools having to adjust to Zoom. It's the personal contact and ability to share ideas, even if they're different, that makes a community thrive. So going forward, we have to invent that new normal, and the phone calls I think was a great thing. Thank you.
Any other board comments? Jeff or Diane?
Thank you, Rich, for that report. I was the one who wanted to make sure that you were here and included. And it's very important that you give a report, because you're a crucial part of everything that's going on right now.
Thank you.
Okay, no other board member questions. Rich, thank you very much. If you're welcome to stay with us, or you can drop off. We have one other agenda item tonight.
All right, I'm going to drop off. Have a good night, everybody.
You too, Rich.
Good night, Rich.
Okay, for the next agenda item, I'm going to go ahead and turn the floor over to Adam. Adam, you see that I've invited Sheila along tonight?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I just pulled in from work, so bear with me here. I'm just getting situated. You have a item before you with the Veterans Park, whether to move it. I think the critical thing here to keep in mind is to come up with a thoughtful and comprehensive approach. You have to have a master plan. We all know Community Preservation Committee expended money on putting it at 4 Elm Street. So we have to make the Community Preservation Committee whole, if you will, satisfy the CPC for the money that was already expended, 37,500 that account. I mean, we have to look at a request of interest, the disposition for Elm Street, whether it goes to the Army Corps of Engineers. There's many moving components to this to really take into consideration as we move forward. I just want to get you thinking that it's not as simple as just a move, but it's a move that can be done with a master plan. And hopefully we could come up with this master plan with, like I mentioned before, a thoughtful, comprehensive approach before the fall town meeting. If the board decides to move forward and want to go move this project from where it was initially going to go to Otter River. With that, that's all I really have, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I think it's a decision that's not as simple as one would think, but it can be done. That's all I got.
Go ahead, Diane.
Through you, or to Adam, how would we make the CPC whole?
Well, that's where, when you're looking at, if you decide to move the project from Four Elm to Otter River, let's say the disposition of the sale. Let's say you sell it for X amount of dollars, and then you give the CPC whatever. I think we have to have that discussion with the CPC committee. I think the more people involved is a good thing, but those are just some thoughts I want you to have in your flowing with this decision. I mean, you're not making it tonight, this is the workshop, but this is a way where we could at least have that discussion amongst the board.
Can you tell me how much money the CPC has expended?
I can tell you how much money we have left. We have 37.5K left. I would have to circle back with you because at the BVA, it gives me the latest number. So I'd have to go back and check how much.
I recall.
Sorry, Diane?
How much we had asked them for.
Yeah,
I don't recall. Go ahead.
What I could do is I can go back and get that information to the board.
Okay,
I don't have that in front of me. I just have that we have $37,500 left in that Four Elm account.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman,
Please go ahead, Jeff.
yes, the March monthly expenditure report for 4 Elm Street from CPC, it shows allocated $45,042.64 with $7,488.40 spent, with an ending balance of $37,554.24. And that's on the March expenditure report.
Thank you, Jeff.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep, go ahead, Sheila.
that money was spent on the monument that we ordered and was going to have erected, and we needed storage, so we bought it. So it was ready for us. That's what the 7,000 and some odd dollars accounts for. It's the only thing that we've spent money on.
Okay. Jeff, what was that last figure? You said 45,000, 7,000 spent with, I think you said an ending balance of, or, oh, I'm sorry, it's just the 45 minus the 7. I don't mean to make you do.
Yeah, 37,554.24 is the ending balance, is what's
Okay.
available according to the BVA.
So, based on what Adam is saying and our previous discussions, we've got a couple different things that that we've got to handle equally going forward. I think that I've used the word stakeholders multiple times. I believe. So let me put that on hold for a second. Just saying stakeholders. We know that there is going to be a certain amount of people that are going to be involved with this as the movers and the shakers of a park project. But first, let me say there's going to be a plan for whatever we're looking for, and that's why Sheila's on tonight to talk about what it's going to consider. But I think And Adam, jump in if you need to. What we weren't paying attention to, what was our disengagement plan from Elm Street? Because it's not just something we can say that we, like Jeff has pointed out, that we spent money and then we're just going to walk away and let it be an abandoned property. I think what we need to do is have a valid disengagement plan, where we're considering funds that have been spent, that can be spent or can't be spent. And even if the answer is yes, it can be, I really need to make sure that the CPC, the Community Preservation Committee, understands that they are a major stakeholder, because they're footing the bill, and they've foot the bill for the initial use of that land on Elm Street. So I would like them to be a stakeholder in a disengagement plan for Elm Street. That means, what is it going to be? Is it something that we could use? Do they have it? What's the CPC's idea for how Elm Street could be used? Would they be on board with selling the property? I think it's a little bit presumptuous to have that discussion, but I'm saying to the group tonight, I think that we need to definitely, as any part of a plan going forward for the new location, we equally have to put some effort into a disengagement plan for Elm Street. Over. So I said I was going to talk about stakeholders. So based on a plan for a new location in a disengagement plan from Elm Street, stakeholders at a minimum, to me, would be the CPC, the veterans that have brought this initiative to us. They're certainly one of the major factors of why this is happening. The fire department, because it abuts a memorial park at the new location. I know that Chief Dickey has already been very involved with discussions. The Board of Selectmen. Are there any other stakeholders that I'm omitting? Go ahead, Terry.
Would it be rec because there's a ball field attached? Would rec be involved because there's a ball field attached?
What does the group think?
Yes.
I would agree with it. Just, I drive by it. Every time I drive by it, I look and I say, what is it going to look like? What are the different considerations? And even when I'm looking at aerial photos, what the point that Terry just made is abundantly clear. It's fields as well. So if it's going to occupy the corner, at least the front, as you're looking at it, the front left corner, I would definitely consider them part of a stakeholder group. Recreation. So I've got CPC, Board of Selectmen, Recreation, Templeton Fire Department, Veteran Services. I'm going to share my screen so you can see me typing along with you.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
I have a question for Sheila. Sheila, I was wondering about your plans going forward, if the police department should be involved too, because you didn't share with me that dream of yours for the new park.
Right.
Memorial.
So, yeah, just so you know, when we found out about the fire department having a memorial there, I went to the veterans and told them about this, and we all agreed that it needed to be more than just a veterans park. So I passed it by the fire Chief Dickey as well as Chief Bennett about changing the layout a little bit and calling it like a heroes park, and include the fire department and the police department. And they were both on board with that.
There you go. I see that.
Can you actually read that on the screen? Is that helpful for people? Okay, good. All right, so stakeholders, a part of basically coming up with that plan. We got disengagement from Elm Street. How should disengagement occur? Whether, someone on the board have an idea for that, or Adam, do you see how disengagement from Elm Street, is that part of a workshop? Is that part of formal public meetings?
Oh, well, I mean, if you want, let's say the board made the decision to move to the Otter River, and you have a property sitting there, the board would have to have a formal vote to declare it surplus or available for disposition under Chapter 30B. And at that point, that would be, if that's the disengagement you're looking at procurement-wise, just getting rid of the land. I know you would have to do a request or a letter of interest for available parties, but I think before we even get to that point, we really have to get this, like you mentioned, the stakeholders involved, having those discussions. That way we could have a plan, because this plan can be adjusted. It's a document that we would have to put together. But once we get it set, we want to have it set where it takes that place all the way up to the fall town meeting. So that way we have a clear path and how to move forward. That's the best way I would go about the disengagement process. But once again, I'm the board ultimately has to decide. I take the decisions of this board. If we go with that, we'll move forward.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead, Diane. Sorry,
Wouldn't-
I had to step away for a second.
shouldn't we go to the CPC first and ask what would happen if we were even thinking about disengaging from Elm Street? Like what their steps would be?
Yeah, because I think in a discovery period, you'd have that discussion.
I mean, I would think we would want to do that first. Before we declare anything surplus.
Okay. Scott Dill is sent us a chat on the YouTube live stream, and he said, hi, at the last CPC meeting, they were in favor of the idea of rolling the Veterans Park in a total park upgrade under the open space and recreation. But I would still like to have that discussion with them about Elm Street. They may be in favor of that, but I would want to make sure that we're not leaving something open.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, would Conservation Commission have to look at it too? And would that be somebody that needed to be part of the conversation?
Yes. Well, what is the, is it close to, I don't know. I actually wouldn't know unless we knew that it was going to be a part of, if they were on a wetland or anything. I know in the back left corner, it seems like it might be a little wet, but I don't know if conservation would, I'm sorry. Yeah, conservation would get involved with it. Does anyone know the answer to that?
My conservation, like you said, generally with the Conservation Wetlands Protection Act, if there's any kind of, like you mentioned already, wetlands or like, we would have to definitely put them involved. So I mean, we could review it. We don't have to have the whole plan laid out today. I think that's something that you could have us, Carter, the town administrator, or the Board of Selectmen's office handle. I think this is a good way to start it, though, get the base together, and then we could kind of take it from there. If the board has consensus on making a move, that would be the right way, because I think we will check all those boxes off. So that way it's one less thing that the board has to be concerned about. Thank you.
Okay. So way forward, I mean, you can see that I'm putting together a document where I can at least sketch a framework of how to move forward with this. I think I'd also like to understand, so people know what it is that we're thinking of. I'd like to talk about what the scope of the program, or at least the Elm Street location. We had a lot of information. We had sketches and blueprints for Elm Street, but we don't have anything for Main Street. Sheila, I was wondering if you could, if I could give you the floor, and if you could give us an idea of what this is going to look like.
Okay, forgive me if I do this wrong, but I'm going to try to share a few things. And it says the host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Sorry, it was on mute. I was speaking on mute. Sean, I was wondering if you're able to enable her. Or
Should be good
Steve.
now.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, forgive me. So can people see this?
Yep.
Okay, so this is for Elm Street. As you're looking at it, the river would have been on your left-hand side. And this is what we had, flags around this circle. The monument was going to go into the middle of the circle, and then parking, as you can see. So that's what Elm Street was looking like. That is to scale. Does anybody have any questions on that? There's 4 benches, some picnic tables. Okay, if there's no questions, I'm going to go to a mock-up, which is not as nice as this one, but it will show you what we were thinking of. So this first picture is what it looks like today. The ball field, I'm just going to scroll into this area. You'll see the park in the lower right-hand corner, and then where the parking lot is. You'll see the gazebo as well. So I'm going to show you one more picture of what we mocked up with a very sketchy drawing tool. And the reason I did this was just so that I could tell the Chief Dickey and Chief Bennett what our plans were. So right here is kind of how we've decided. We're keeping the same concept as the Veterans Park, but we've added 2 more circles. And our idea was at the very front on Main Street is to have a sign and call it Heroes Park with plants around it. We're keeping the tree in the corner, the left-hand side by the parking area. And we're planning on repaving the parking area and bringing it all the way down to the wall. And our thought is the flags are going to be in the back. On the top flag that you circle you see will be the police department flag flying in the middle. The one closest to the cars is going to be the fire department's flag flying. We're going to move the boulders that are currently there into the back and do some landscaping. And then over to the by the ball field, there's right here will be the handicap porta john. Handicap parking space is where the vehicles are. The gazebo is still there. We want to make a ramp down from the gazebo so that it's ADA compliant. And that sand color, what we'd like to do is make it a walking area all the way around the ball field. And then the stuff that looks like teak wood is the foam padding for the playground. and right in front of the handicap, placing a couple of picnic tables there, and moving the monument that's currently there for the Hoffman Park, and moving it over so it's more visible when people enter the park. So it's kind of a mock-up. As you can see, it's not as professional as the Elm Street, but this was just to see if the fire department and the police department were on board, which they are. And so now I'm going to go back to the person who did my original plans and have them change it.
So Sheila, can you see what I'm doing on the screen?
Yes,
All right, that's where the flags would go?
correct.
Okay,
And then there'd be one flag in the middle of both of the smaller circles.
okay,
There'll be park benches placed around that area as well, so people can sit and just enjoy the park, or to look at the monument. The monument's going to fit. It's a blank monument, so there's nothing written on it. So I will be working with the CPC to see what we need to do to get that transferred over to this location if this is where we decide to go.
so that curve, I don't know if you can see the arrow, that curve thing
Yeah.
right there, that's the slab?
That's the flags. That's where the flags would go.
Oh, okay, so that's not like a wall behind it. Everything is pretty much flat.
Yeah, so our flags were going to go behind a wall for protection. But yeah, like I said, this was a freebie mock-up, and I wanted to get this going so that people could kind of visualize it better and see if everybody was on board and what we could do, as opposed to trying to plan in a conceptual way. I wanted to get it on a piece of paper.
Okay. Scott Dill has chimed in a couple more times after his other statement, but he said the CPC stated that they would need to do a site plan drainage stormwater runoff study along with it. And there are some wetlands in the back corner. So that is a good question, Terry, on conservation, to get Andrew and his, George Andrews and his team out there. I'm going to check my email real quick. He did I'm not sure if Scott, if that's the same vision plan that Sheila is showing us right now, but I can certainly look.
I don't think so. The only two people that I sent this to were the chiefs.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions of Sheila while she has this projected? Does that make sense to everybody?
I think it's beautiful.
Were the abutters part of the group that came in and said that they would like it here? I don't recall.
I'm sorry, say that again.
So there are abutters to the park on Main Street. I'm just wondering if they were part of the crew that came in initially when they made that proposal to the Board of Selectmen, that they were in favor of enhancing the park.
I don't recall.
Yeah, I don't either. Let's see, what do I
But
have?
again, if moving forward, Mike, I'll do what I did before, which was to talk to them and show them a plan and get their opinions and make sure that we're okay to move forward with them.
Sheila, I know this was not a coordinated effort, but I wanted to show you, at least from, if we were talking about stakeholders and we agree that recreation needs to be a part of it because of all of the fields. If you don't mind, I'd like to show what Scott has sent me.
Okay.
Let's see. Can everyone see that? Is that too small?
It's kind of small.
All right, gonna work. See if I can get that a little bit bigger.
Ask Mike to make some.
Okay.
Are you gonna go out and get some? Where? Get a pizza.
Oh, good. There's a big kid area.
I'm sorry?
There's a big kid area. So I did Zoom. If people can kind of follow along. He's got pretty much the same kind of the proposed memorial and existing. Yours has 3 circles, so I would love to be able to get together and the basic structure of the park is there. Now, obviously, Scott's is going, yeah, Scott, as Scott said, that this is a total park plan. So if we fuse these things together, I don't think Scott's saying to us that he's going to design the Veterans Park, but he's basically got the structure of it and how everything else would shake out if we're going to holistically give this whole area a major overhaul. So as far as stakeholders in this plan, I think it's going to be a much bigger plan than even the veterans that first proposed changing this. I think it's going to be something a little bit more substantial from what Scott's got here and then what we're showing on the screen.
Mike, I definitely think that this is something that we should talk about. Like I said, in this plan, the park is the proposed memorial, and the existing memorial wouldn't exactly work when we think about what we already have for the monument. And but this is a lot different than what we were thinking of. So I definitely, like I said, I put this stuff up so that we could talk about it. And as you know, I haven't talked to everybody who has a stake in this, and to see what would best be for the environment. I mean, not environment, but the towns and the communities. So like you've said,
Well, I certainly didn't mean to put you on the spot, and I'm glad that Scott is watching and providing this to me, or to us, I should say. What he's giving is that holistic entire park view where you were able to really kind of drill down.
Well,
I agree with Diane that what you gave us is absolutely beautiful. I can conceptualize it the same way that I can with that professional design of Elm Street.
I focused on the park area, but the rest of this, I did do the pathway around the ball field. Yep. And I don't know, I don't believe this is the way to kind of talk about this, but we'll go with it. My idea was to get to actually open up the ball field and allow community events to be happening there, like our veteran events that might be happening, the Mac and Cheese Festival, other things that the towns have been doing. Because of the parking area, there'd be a lot more parking area. So like I said, this was kind of my mock-up of what I wanted to do. And then I wanted to research the use of the ball field and stuff like that. So there's a lot of work to be done on this, but with everything that's going on, I really haven't had a time to concentrate on it.
Okay. Well, this being a workshop, I think that we're seeing what we need to do to move forward for it. We need a plan of action to go forward. And I think that developing our list of stakeholders is of utmost importance. We get a handle on moving forward with funds to make sure that we're adequately, the money that is there, so there aren't any questions about funds available for it. And then I think my point this evening, kind of jumping on the coattails of what Adam had said, is that we need to be very mindful about a disengagement plan from Elm Street. How would people like to move forward? How do we get together a plan of action? Adam, can I punt to you?
Mr. Chairman, based on the conceptualization from Sheila and now what we saw from Scott, I think that for the town, I see more benefit to moving to Main Street as a whole, as a benefit to our community as a whole. I would like to see us disengage from Elm Street and move to Main Street. What does that full disengagement look like? Do we sell the property? Do we? I'm not sure what that would look like, but I would like to see us ask the CPC. How do we figure out how to make them whole again? Like, what are their rules for that? I would like the board to know that. And I would like to see us move to Main Street for the benefit of our communities and for the heroes.
I agree.
Thanks, Diane. Adam, is it as simple as just having a joint meeting with CPC to basically settle that?
The board wants to proceed that way, or we could show up to a meeting as representatives and discuss it with them. We have a pretty good relationship with the CPC committee as well as the Board of Selectmen. So as your agent, we could do that, and we could take it from there. As long as we have some direction in the sense of, like, I know Diane knows that she brought me to that park before too. I think this could be a good partnership between the recreation department and the committee and their focus on the park and the improvements they want to make, in addition to the veterans groups, and then Sheila and her group working collaboratively to have a nice, beautiful place where people come together. Parks are very important, and this is something that we can attribute to our heroes, as Sheila mentioned, and something that, now, are we going to totally agree on one of the two plans right now tonight? I think we could work that out as the process goes. But as long as we have a message of something like, yeah, we're interested in moving forward, we would like you to explore that, and we can then talk with CPC. I think that's probably the best first step. That's what I would recommend to the board. However you want to proceed is up to you.
Yeah, I think that we need to disengage first. Terry, I think you had something.
Well, you said, where do we start? And I just wanted to agree with Diane. I think it's, meet with CPC to satisfy their concerns and going forward and what they would recommend.
Okay. Just wanted to share my screen again. Just moving forward, I'd like to come up with some assumptions that we have. So we got to make sure that we're aligned on that. Yeah, Scott was saying that this is going to be a massive project and it's going to be an amazing addition to the community. I agree. I think maybe because I've heard people discuss it as COVID times. We're in COVID times. It may be a good time to actually do all of the disengagement work while we have the inability to meet and plan for the greater project that Sheila and Scott are describing. But what I've got up on the screen right now that you see is some assumptions moving forward. We know that we have unanimous support to move. I think that's a good assumption. I don't think I've heard anyone say no unless it actually involved that second item there, that funds are available. That's an assumption that we're making right now. Disengagement from Elm Street has to come first, because that involves the discussion of in allowing CPC and the stakeholder group, maybe not as large as the stakeholder group that we had talked about a few minutes ago, but certainly I would love to involve CPC as a major driver for what it is that we do, what we decide to do with the Main Street property. But I think that that's got to be an assumption, is that disengagement from Elm Street, that should come first. Did anyone else want to add to this list of assumptions?
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
The CPC will play a major role in the move to Main Street as well. It's open space, and we should see how much funding would be available for that as well.
Okay. About that one, design meeting must include all stakeholders. So like we just saw a little discord a little bit earlier, you know, sorry for both of them. You know, Scott had one sketch and Sheila had another. But if we have design meetings, that's got to include all stakeholders, even if we're still in COVID times and have to utilize technology to do that. Before that, I'm going to put I think it's an assumption that we have to have an initial scope discussion with CPC. Adam, or to the rest of the board, how would that meeting, are we in the realm of creating a subcommittee? I hate to use that word when we've still got unfinished business stemming from other committees, or is that like a joint meeting that can happen? Someone help me out here. How can we have that discussion with CPC?
I think the best way to go about it is for us to have that discussion with them. I know Scott pointed out that there seems to be support for the move from the CPC committee, but we want to be cognizant, because that's, like as mentioned earlier, that's an important step. I think before I don't want to jump ahead too far. I'm more of a one step at a time type of guy, only because if my one step throws off, then everything else is subject to change in the plan. So I would
Can design occur simultaneously to that?
Well, you think about it, right? Let's say we go to CPC and there is an interest. I mean, that throws a whole different tool in the project, if you will. So I think Sheila, I'm actually pretty impressed with the job she did so far, putting together this sketch, the map and the plans, and she's been doing a lot of work, and a lot of her volunteers that are veterans, citizens that have been helping her. I think trusting not only Sheila but us to start those steps, I think is critical. That's where I would.
We're never going to accomplish with our meeting schedule. We're never going to, for like Scott says in the chat comments, it's a massive project that we will be proud of when we get it done. But our Board of Selectmen meetings is not going to achieve success for this massive project. So that initial disengagement plan with just an initial scope discussion with CPC, I think we can get that done, like you say, in the short term. But what is going to be the project term or the long term plan? Do we hand this over to Sheila and Scott and CPC? What kind of oversight do you guys want on it?
I think Diane wants to say something.
Yeah. Diane, you're speaking, but hold on, you got to go off mute.
I think that Sheila and her team and Scott and his team would do well to come together and look at their sketches and like work things out together. I don't think that the board needs to be involved with that. Perhaps we give them a charge and they report back to us like monthly or something to that nature. I think that you know, them going to the CPC is the way it should be and not the board be involved because they've already had a great relationship with them and we should let that continue. That's how I see that.
Okay, that is a excellent point, Diane. So for that discussion, if I talk with Sheila, CPC, and or Scott, is the scope of the project what we've seen so far? Are you, Terry, Jeff, Diane, are you happy with what you see in terms of scope?
I am.
Okay. Because what I can do is I can have that discussion knowing that what your thoughts are. Say that again, Adam.
No, if I could just jump in, interject here for a second. I would think that we would be more of like the quarterbacks out of our office because we're now we have a lot of thoughtful plans, everything, but keep in mind there's still work that needs to be, documents that need to be kept, procurement. We have to make sure we cover all those bases because if we're having other people doing a project and we don't know about it, because honestly, I saw one of the plans tonight, the other one I didn't see. These are things that we need to have and know, because if we have people going all these separate directions and nobody's talking with our office, and if something goes wrong, I want to make sure we covered all those bases. So
Okay.
make sure we can make sure that we're the quarterbacks and that we're kind of running with it. That way, if something goes wrong, you can blame us. Just saying.
So Adam, if we could ask you, if you could at least have that initial scope discussion with CPC, Sheila, and Scott. That way you guys have the right idea going forward. And then we can have some of those other discussions like disengagement and a design meeting. That would be great. If you could do that for us, I think that's exactly what Diane's talking about. Terry, did you have something?
No, I was just thankful that Adam piped in. The first chain of command would be through the TA's office. And wouldn't it be, you know, they would bring things to us as they, correct me if I'm wrong, but wouldn't you bring things to us as necessary or as needed so that we wouldn't have to have any more, you know, as far as checks and balances go, that unless we're not starting a committee, so anything that you find that we need to look at, you would bring to us and we wouldn't have to worry about being involved in the nitty gritty, so to speak. You follow me?
Yeah, and I think that's important to know. Obviously, the Board of Selectmen would be involved in that process. And not only that, but we want the people in town to know that we're having a transparent process and we're doing everything to satisfy the CPC and keep them whole. And, you know, is everybody going to agree 100%? We will see. But one step at a time. Like I can't, but at the same token, we have to make sure that we're checking all those boxes. That way, if an auditor, whoever comes knocking on the town's doors, we're prepared, we're ready, say, hey, great plan. We covered all the bases. Everything's up to standards and we're all set.
Unfortunately, I don't want it to be on as needed basis. We need to be kept up to date on a regular schedule.
Yeah, we could do it. I mean, every other month, something. We'll come up with something.
I'm thinking at least
for 3 months. I don't know, something like that.
Do we want this in the business meeting or in the workshop? Like every workshop, we get an update. Diane, does that sound good?
Yeah, I would like to be kept up to date on a regular basis, not every 2 months, not every workshop or something.
Okay.
So like every workshop item, that it would be on there and an update would occur? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Carrie?
Well, from what I took from what Adam was saying was that, and I understand what Diane's saying, but there may be times there's nothing. So Adam, what I took away from Adam was, it'll come through his office and everything that needs to come to us will come to us on a timely basis, but you have to start somewhere and you take it one step at a time. So, in going through it one step at a time, there may not be times where there's anything to really report. So what Diane's saying is, even if he says, okay, nothing new at this time, at least we're getting updated. Is that
Yeah,
a compromise?
I accept that. Yeah. All right, so we talked about scope. We talked about the CPC's involvement, disengagement as a priority. What else? What else can we discuss about this evening? Adam's going to chair a scope discussion with the VSO, CPC, and REC. He'll update every Board of Selectmen workshop. Even if he doesn't have anything, it's still going to be Holly. It's still going to be on the agenda for the workshops, even if he doesn't have anything to report. The document that I've been typing on, I'll email it to all of you. That way you've got some thoughts, and otherwise it's kind of like our plan of action and milestones along the way. And we're going to develop milestones. As Scott had referred to in the chat area, if it is going to be as big as we think it's going to be, as good as it's going to be for the community, there will be several milestones along the way. So I can at least email that to you. What else, team?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, please, Jeff.
I would just remind everyone that this CPC money of the original appropriation came from town meeting vote to appropriate X amount of money for the tear down of the building that was at 4 Elm Street and Veterans Park at 4 Elm Street. May have to go to town meeting to amend their vote, especially if it's going to be include something besides a veterans park. You're having the police, the fire, and now we're going to be working on the whole Houghton Park area. That may be the first thing we need to do, is to get a town meeting vote to amend their original appropriation.
I agree, Jeff. Do you think that they'd be able to cover that in that meeting with Adam and the others as we talked about? Adam, I can see you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, that's why at the beginning when I first spoke, I think we could work on this and get this ready for the fall town meeting.
Yep, I think I think the glide path for fall town meeting is definitely what it's going to be. And I think that Jeff's right on the money for that. And I did capture that in my notes.
And also on top of that, if you do it at a fall special town meeting, you could perhaps at least have a good rough plan to present to them that this is the alternative direction we're going in, to give them incentive, or at least an idea of what you're going to do, rather than just, well, we've changed our mind and we're going here. You would have something, even if it's rough, you would have something good to put in front of them to base their vote to their decision to amend their original vote.
I agree. I think that's a good plan. I think that article would look right if it was presented like that, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff. Makes sense.
Adam, I've got nothing else. I think that we've talked through a lot of the big rocks, and we have a plan going forward.
Yeah, and we'll just make sure we keep that, like Diane mentioned, at the workshop, we'll have an item where the status will always be marked on for whatever reported.
Okay, I've captured that. Hey, team, I've talked a lot this evening. I'd love to hear from you at this point. So if we move on in the agenda, I know I don't have board member comments on there, but if you like, if you have any comments before we adjourn, I'd absolutely welcome them.
Just one thing, I don't know if most people might have saw it, most of the selectmen might have saw it, but I don't know if everybody in TV land did. The Templeton Tough T-shirt sale to benefit the food bank raised $1,250. And I thank Scott Dill and Jackie Prime for the effort and work they did on getting that moving and getting the word out there. And thank you for the residents, people who bought those shirts. Maybe in the future, maybe we could, I could talk to Scott or something. We could maybe do a hat thing or do a second evolution. Also, the food pantry is now also working, has Saturday hours. So it's a 3-day-a-week event now, and that may go for some time. So again, thank you for the people who bought the shirts, and thank you for to Scott Dill and Jackie Prime for their effort in that project.
Absolutely, Jeff. And just a note on total contributions, that this community has really done amazing things for each other. We went from an account that was just under 4,000 to over 15,000. So that's over $7,000 in donations and gift cards and everything else. So like Jeff said, it's been pretty amazing. We today's daily status report had several pictures of the food pantry, just to let people see how well stocked and how well managed it has been. And just a word on the organization of the food pantry. Many communities don't have their own. We happen to have ours. And when the Haywood, we get Worcester Food Bank donations through Haywood Hospital food boxes. When they came to coordinate that effort, the Haywood Hospital representative said to Jackie Prime, our community services director, that our pantry was one of the most well-organized pantries she has seen. And that's entirely attributed to Jackie, the senior service center employees, and Jackie's volunteers. They really did a fantastic job. I was there on Saturday to watch their operation on their Saturday hours, as Jeff pointed out. And they're upbeat. They're following all the right CDC and state guidelines, and they're getting that service out to the public. Thanks. Anyone else?
It has been amazing to watch this community come together in food pantry donations and mask making. And I have a friend who's making ear savers that go behind your head so that the nurses who are wearing masks all day can save their ears. And just the innovative things that people are doing to help one another, neighbors helping neighbors. And I just kudos to this community and to the people who are really stepping up and stepping out. It's just, it warms my heart.
Thank you, Diane. And while you were saying that, Jackie Prime, who is watching from the comfort of her living room, has put on the comment section, our townspeople have stepped up in a huge way to support the food pantry. Thank you, everyone. Something to be proud of. So that's from your community services director. Any other board member or staff comments? Okay, hearing none. Good short workshop this evening. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a
Second.
motion- I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of adjournment, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I heard an overwhelming number of ayes, so we are adjourned. Time now is 7.